What's up folks, Lex here, and today we're going to be talking about the Xbox Series X. I was lucky enough to get a reservation on one and pick one up. It's been pretty tough for a lot of people to try to get a hold of this system, but I wanted to unbox it and also kind of do a first impressions on it. Not a full review. I'm not going to be showing you load times exactly. I'm not going to be going through frame rates exactly or anything like that. This is just initial impressions from someone who just likes to play games. So I have an Xbox One X. I got one on launch. I started with the Xbox One S, and I really liked that console. I like the design of it. I like the capabilities of it. I like the look of it. I liked pretty much everything about it, especially being introduced into a lot of the Xbox exclusives that I missed out on because I refused to get an Xbox One at launch. I was not a fan of the messaging behind the Xbox One originally. I'm not an online guy, so saying basically you have to be online all the time in order to even use your console was just something that turned me off completely. And I think it was probably ahead of its time too. Had they really come out with that message maybe this time around or even next time around after this, it probably would have been okay, but trying to force gamers to do that sort of thing didn't go over well. And since I got the Xbox One S and the One X, I have grown to love the Xbox experience. I'm even a fan of the interface. I know a lot of people are not a fan of that interface, but to me it's fine. It's usable. I know where everything is. Sure, it takes a little while to get used to, and I will agree that the PS4 interface is easier to use, but overall, once you get to learn how to use it and customize your settings and all that kind of stuff, I think it's fine. So for those of you who are not a fan of that interface, it's pretty much the same thing on the Series X. It's basically identical, and that's going to be kind of a running theme with the Series X. It's very, very similar to what we had before. Now, let me start out by saying I'm not going to bury the lead here. I'm going to tell you straight up right here, right now, whether I think it's worth $500, and that's kind of a tricky answer. If you have the Xbox One X, this is probably not worth $500 to you. If you had the Xbox One S, maybe you can justify it a little bit more, but even then, it's kind of iffy. If you have the original Xbox, which looks like a VCR, then this is probably a pretty good upgrade for you. And if you have never had the Xbox One before, then this is actually a pretty nice system to get. The one great thing about this system, and there actually are a couple of great things, but one I want to put above all else is its commitment to backwards compatibility. Now, not every single game in your library is going to be backwards compatible, but almost all of the Xbox One games are, a bunch of the 360 games are, and the Xbox, the original Xbox, the library is a little slim, I will admit, but even some of those can work on this Series X. And not only are those older games going to work on the Series X, but they're going to load a lot faster. Some of them are even going to perform better. So when it comes to backwards compatibility, this is a nice system to have because when you compare it to the PS5 is going to have the same compatibility in terms of PS4, but their PS3 games are not backwards compatible, nor are their PS2 games, so you're cutting out a large chunk of what you can actually play. Now, that may not matter at all to you, but for those that do put some value and some stock in backwards compatibility, this machine is impressive. In fact, I went and I put a couple of 360 games to the test. Everything worked fine. They loaded really quickly. I put some original Xbox games to the test. Same thing there. They loaded quickly. And of course, I played some Xbox One games because unfortunately we don't really have any Xbox Series X exclusives to play. All the Xbox One games, again, played better than they did before. But here's the thing that you're going to have to understand. it's not a drastic difference in most cases. What this system really excels at is load times. Load times for a lot of games that I tried were cut down 95%. I mean, stuff that would take a minute to load would take 4 seconds. Now, I'm someone who doesn't really put a whole lot of stock in loading times. I'm a pretty patient person, so having things load faster for me is not a huge selling point. But if you're playing a game that loads frequently, then this system is really going to do wonders for you. I've been playing a lot of Watch Dogs Legion lately, and it's a game that I love. I absolutely adore the game. I think it does a lot of cool things, but this isn't a review for that game. But Watch Dogs Legion has a lot of loading screens in it. When you fast travel, it loads. When you switch a character, it loads. Of course, it loads when you load into the game and all that kind of stuff. So it has a lot of loading screens, and those loading screens are now cut down drastically. But it's also good for just opening up the menu in Watch Dogs Legion. I mean, before just opening up the menu to look at your operatives or to look at the map would take a couple of seconds to do. It was like stalling. But with this, it just instantly pops up. And when you played 40 hours of having to wait for that screen to pop up and it getting annoying, and then all of a sudden it just pops up as you would expect it to, it really is a big improvement in your quality of life for that specific game. I also tested some other games for specific reasons. I downloaded Dead Cells and Tetris Effect to test out the new D-pad on the Xbox Series X controller. Now, this is very similar to the Elite controller D-pad. It's oddly shaped, and I wasn't thinking that I was going to like it very much because of that shape, but it turns out that I love this D-pad. And the reason why I love it so much is because it gives your thumb something to catch onto as you're rocking it back and forth, left and right, up and down. It gives your thumb something to just hit and stop so that you're not slipping off the D-pad. Obviously, Dead Cells you can play with the joystick if you want to, so that's kind of optional if you want to use the D-pad. But a game like Tetris Effect, it's vital that the D-pad is good. And I have two main complaints with the D-pad. Number one, it is very loud. It's a very clicky noise, and it can get very annoying after a while, after a short while, I should say, because one game of Tetris Effect and you're going to be like, why is this so clicky? But some people like clicky things like mechanical keyboards and all that kind of stuff, so maybe that thing is for you, and it is kind of for me too. It just depends on the mood I'm in. The other thing I wanted to point out was how sensitive the D-pad is. It's a little too sensitive in my opinion. Sometimes you'll overshoot in Tetris Effect where you're aiming to go, and as you know, in Tetris, that can completely screw up the level for you and just make it so that it's no good. You have to restart. As far as the feel and the look of the controller, it's almost identical to the Xbox One. Some main difference is that there's a share button, which is much welcomed because, you know, pushing the Xbox button to then push X to record or whatever was kind of a pain. Now you just push it if you want a screenshot, hold it down if you want video, very much like the PS4 has now. Another difference is how the controller feels in terms of the grip. There's kind of a texture on the grips and on the triggers as well that kind of gives it kind of a gritty feel and makes it so that you have a better grip overall on those handles. But when it comes down to it, it's the Xbox controller, and you either love it or you're kind of with it. And I love the Xbox controller, but not for every game. I think for some games, maybe a little bit of a slimmer controller is better, but overall I really do like the Xbox controller. I've liked it for a long time, and this one is no different. By the way, Tetris Effect is a really good game. I hadn't played it yet. I'm a Tetris fan, but I just didn't get around to playing it on the PS4. I absolutely loved it. It's a very chill game. It's relaxing. It's got all these cool things on top of the solid game of Tetris that's already there. I ended up spending the first day with my Series X basically going through the campaign of Tetris Effect because I liked it so much. Another game I wanted to check out is Madden 17, and you may be asking why Madden 17? Well, Madden 17 was the last time that I actually had fun with a Madden game, and I still play it regularly. I've got a franchise mode that I've had now since December of 2016, and I usually play a game a night or so. It's kind of just a relaxing way to multitask in the evening time. I wanted to see how this would improve loading times, because while once you're in the game of Madden, there aren't too many loading times, but going from the menu to into the franchise menu and into a game and so on and so forth, there are some loading scenes that take a while, and what I found was it actually did not help loading times in this game very much. I was kind of shocked, because everything else that I tested, loading times were dramatically improved, and I don't know if that has to do with the franchise info that it has to now load up when I'm starting a game or whatever. It was faster, but it wasn't like, wow, that's a game changer right there. I also noticed that the graphics were a bit crisper. I don't know if that's just my mind playing tricks on me or whatever. It wasn't a significant difference, but it did seem like the graphics looked better. I also checked out Forza Horizon 4, which I played a little bit on my Xbox One. Wasn't a huge fan of it. I liked Forza Horizon 3 much better, but there's no denying that Forza Horizon 4 looks great. It plays great, runs great. It's just the demo game, maybe this in Gears 5, for the Series X. It looks phenomenal. HDR, 4K, 60 frames per second, just lights out, no question about it. The best looking game I tried out of all of these here. But other than that, there's really not much to say about Forza Horizon 4. If you've played it, you know what you're getting, and it just looks great. Testing out other games like the 360 games, the fact that they're stretched out to that 4K picture, it does make them look not bad, but just, text and stuff like that in those games looks a little blurry. So it's not the greatest in terms of text, but loading times. Fallout New Vegas took like 3 seconds to load into my save. It was astonishing, and you know how many loading screens there can be in Fallout games. Well, the Series X cuts down on a lot of those. So that's why I said it's going to depend on who you are as a gamer, whether this is worth it or not. If you play a lot of Bethesda style games where there's a ton of loading screens for getting inside of buildings and fast travel and stuff like this is going to cut down on that time spent in loading screens a ton. So real quick about the look of the system, it's a monolith. It's just this black cinder block almost, and it's heavy, and it does get a little warm. I've been playing it all day long. It gets a little warm. I would expect it to do that. No, my system has not been smoking. No, it's not dying on me or anything like that. So far, it's held up really well. It's a plump system, but I just like how it's kind of unassuming. It doesn't look like a game console. It just looks like technology, like a box of technology. It does have a port for memory expansion once you get filled up. I still haven't filled mine up yet, and I've put several 360 games on it. I've put a couple of Xbox One games on it, Halo and Forza and Madden and all that kind of stuff. Still going pretty strong with that, so I'm not really worried about filling it up. Although, certainly I've seen reviews where people have filled it up already, so it's just going to depend on what you play and how many games you want to have on hand. And of course, I have to mention this as a part of the Series X review because it's so vital to the Xbox ecosystem, and that's Game Pass. Game Pass offers over 100 games for you to play, and all kinds of games, so there's bound to be something for you in there. But they also added EA Play to Game Pass. So that means that you've got games like Mass Effect and Battlefield and Star Wars games and all the different sports titles, FIFA and Madden, NBA Live if you want it. You know, just for $15 a month, it's like 150 games or so. That's insane. Gears Tactics is debuting on the Series X for console. It's already been out on PC for a while, and I played it on PC and I really like it. If you like XCOM, I think you'll enjoy Gears Tactics as well. So check that out. You've got that in Game Pass. You don't have to go out and buy the game separately. The value for Game Pass is insane. Every month where I ask myself, well, did I play like 15 hours of Game Pass to really make it worth it? I always think, like, it's $15 and I've got access to all these games. Why not just keep it? And you can get deals on Game Pass all over the place too. This is not a sponsored video. I'm just saying, as a fan, this is an incredible deal. And I really like the Xbox Series X. But I have to harp on the fact that this does not have the killer app. It doesn't have that game that you must play on the Series X. Really, anything that you can play on the Series X, you can basically play on something else. And most of the time, the experience is not going to be so far apart that you need to have the Series X to play whatever it is you're playing. So in that sense, it's hard to say that this thing is worth $500 yet, because really, you can buy a cheap Xbox One X and still have a pretty close experience. The main thing that separates the Series X from the Xbox One X are those load times. If you play a game that has a lot of loading in it, then this might be worth $500 for you. Listen, I have a PC that's capable of handling most things on ultra settings. It's not a beast, I would say, but I spent a good amount on it, and it can play pretty much anything that I want to play. So yeah, I get the PC crowd saying this is just a PC upgrade, and you could get a better upgrade if you build your own PC. But for those who like to stick to the console side of things, and listen, PC can be a very frustrating thing to handle. Sometimes you've got OS problems, sometimes you've got compatibility issues, sometimes you've got driver issues, and all of those are very common things. With the console, you buy it, you put in the game, you update it, install it, and then you play it. So for those people who want to stick to console, this is like a big PC upgrade, like a graphics card upgrade for you. For $500 to get that, to get the new controller, to get faster loading times, to get ray tracing on games like Watch Dogs Legion, I mean, that's a really good deal. I'm not here to say that $500 isn't a lot of money, because it is. So please weigh your funds to what I'm saying here and how much you'll get out of the system for sure. If you're up against the wall and only have $500 for the month to eat or to buy the Series X, eat, please. Don't go spending $500 on this if you can't afford it, obviously. But really, you're going to feel burned if you do that and you realize that this is just an upgrade. In some respects, a slight upgrade to the Xbox One X. Alright, I think that's all I'm going to say about this system for now. I'm enjoying my time with it, but it's obviously not a game changer. It just feels like when I picked up the Xbox One X, it just feels like that upgrade. So anyway, let me know what you guys think of the Series X. Do you have one? Could you get one? If you did, what do you think of it? If you didn't get one, are you feeling left out? Something tells me if you didn't get one and you're feeling left out, please don't. I don't think it's that big of a deal. It's not that big of an upgrade to where you should feel totally left out in the dust or anything like that. Wait till next year, snag one then. There will be a couple of exclusives to play, I'm sure. Xbox or Microsoft has all those studios they bought, like Obsidian and NXIL and all those great studios, so check it out then, but really don't feel too bad. Give the video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. Share it with friends if they're looking for the Series X and looking for info on the Series X. Until next time, I'm Lex, signing off.